who come from the PDP and the actor who is acting both whether in the PDP or APC. And he's also at the center of the first story for today, which is around his altercation with a commissioned officer and reactions that have followed since then. He himself held a press briefing yesterday. So let's talk about Mr. Nyesom Wike this morning, but in light now of what's happened with he and the officer and some of the reactions coming from some military generals, even the former chief of defense staff has weighed in on this one as well. And of course, NMDPRA, the 15% tax and other stories. We're fine.
Okay. In his words that he used to Officer Yerima, you are a fool. Mr. Wike thinks we are fools. Oh, he really thinks we are fools. And it's obvious. He thinks we are fools. And for those that sulk up to him, you can see what you have done. You can see what you've done. You've
name some of those.
You've increased his ego. There are plenty.
Give us empirical data.
Yes, empirical facts.
The data boys and cameramen.
Oh, there was a cameraman that indicated.
Please. So those that suck up to him and feed his ego and go and sit in front of him and be hearing all he's saying, you have caused Nigeria this ruination. The next thing, he starts to change the matter. He starts to talk about law. He says the land is owned by Santos, it's not owned by the naval chief. No, you must really think we are kindergarten and we are foolish people in this country. If the land is not owned by the military officer that bought it from that Santos that they allocated the land to, why are we here? And Matawale said he told you that they will call the military apparatchik. You spoke to the CDS, but that was not enough. You took a convoy there. Dr. Abati, this man even took outriders. I don't know when FCT ministers start to take outriders and big convoy.
Maybe as a former governor.
Took outriders. They marched to the venue. But what did they collect? Water. He collected water because as he went back. Yerima stood his ground. Then he started assaulting Yerima. We forget that was assault. If Yerima takes permission from the Navy, he can actually sue Nyesom Wike for assault. Then the next thing, one of his data boys was on air the other day saying, what did he say? He said he was angry. He was angry. That's why he was calling him a fool, right? He was angry. He was angry. So they are trying to twist the narrative. What do these people take us for? What do Minister Wike take us for? He thinks we are fools? Right. Minister Wike, the honorable thing to do in things like this, it won't hurt you. Apologize to the people. What I thought your press conference was going to be is apologize to everybody that is on. Even if you don't want to call Yerima's name, apologize to Yerima. Right. Or the institutions that are bound.
Yeah, I think institutions.
That's just it. Yeah. All you need now is apologize. Stop digging yourself in. Just apologize. Oh, for all the sin that happened, I apologize for all concerned. And that's just it. Let this matter end here. You call the press, you are digging it, trying to think we are fools to ourselves.
All right.
Okay, just additional comments on the man I described yesterday as Yomonile of the Federal Capital Territory, who thoroughly embarrassed the President of Nigeria while pretending to be exercising delegated authority. This morning, I've also said he comes across as APC's political bamsa in the People's Democratic Party. Hence, he's trying to impose himself on that party to serve the purpose of a fifth columnist within the People's Democratic Party. So that ties the two subjects together. However, he was on television characteristically yesterday, paid, adverts for himself, in which he was saying that he respects the rule of law. Now, I don't think that is true. If the minister respects the rule of law, he cannot be selective in terms of the rule of law that he respects. When he was governor in Rivers State, did he respect the rule of law? In his attempt to say, as he insisted yesterday, that he wants to preserve the integrity of the Abuja Master Plan, going to pull down people's buildings, going to attack estates, is that respect for the rule of law for a man that is an officer in the Temple of Justice as a legal practitioner? Now, this same man says he's respecting the rule of law. Why is it that a person who says he respects the rule of law will be selective in his respect for the rule of law? There are many court judgments regarding to this Abuja Master Plan. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory chooses the kind of law that he wants to respect, the one that he doesn't want to respect. That in itself is an abominable, unacceptable behavior. That's number one. So he's saying he respects the rule of law. That's a lie. Number two, he said that he has no problem with the military and that he respects the military because he knows what the military is doing, and that if he has any problem with the military, he knows where to go. But he doesn't believe in confrontation. Nyesom Wike saying that he does not believe in confrontation. He even confronts journalists.
Yes. Not
realizing that you don't fight a man or people who have platforms. You will lose in the long run. So disrespecting the media, the military establishment, confronting the military establishment, that's precisely what he did. And by so doing, I insist, I repeat, that he exposed the president, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, to utter embarrassment And that is something that I think that the president of Nigeria should still address, one way or the other. And it is as follows. He says, okay, he respects the military. He doesn't disrespect any institution. This is after it was reported yesterday on the front page of a Punch newspaper that the generals are fuming. There is no general that is supporting Nyesom Wike. They are all supporting Officer Yerima. They say he's disciplined. They said he was polite. They said he showed professionalism. The CDS is behind him. Minister Matawale has spoken also in his defense and in defense of the military. The Minister of Defense, Minister Badaru, has also spoken in defense of the military. The Inspector General of Police has told his men that, look, nobody should go and use you to put down other person's buildings in Abuja without a court order. In other words, the Inspector General of Police is also saying that what Minister Wike did was unlawful, was a resort to self-help. And law enforcement officers wearing the police uniform should not do that. So Minister Wike says he respects the rule of law. So he's the only one who is redefining, recharacterizing, positioning his conduct. I think that the time has come for the president of Nigeria to call him to order.
Yes.
To say that there is something about decorum in terms of the behavior of public officers. He could have used a court order.
Yes.
If there are court orders, he could have respected those court orders. And whether the land was in the possession of a former chief of air staff or naval staff or whatever, nobody is above the laws of the land. And no minister has the powers to intimidate everybody. He says he doesn't like intimidation, that nobody can intimidate a government. All of us exist under the rule of law. And by conduct, ministers who have been given the opportunity to serve by President Tinubu must also conduct themselves in a decorous manner. No minister has the powers to come and dictate to everybody. You dictate to the media, you dictate to the military.
They will telling you the question to
on
ask
the basis
in
of what?
media chats. They will tell you questions to ask.
What have I forgotten? Have I forgotten something?
No, just 60%.
No, okay, on the 15% ad valorem. Ad valorem means, according to value. I see the producer was using the word like 4 or 5 times. It means you pay import tax according to the value of what you have imported. That's the simple meaning. However, when this was introduced, I think on October 21, there was a lot of protest that it will increase the pump price of fuel. Now, I agree with Gillis Harris. That's the president of Petro-Am. Yeah. He says this shows that the government is responsive. Yeah. The government has shown sensitivity to the reaction of the people. Now, what the president, through the NMDPRA, has done is to say, okay, we are postponing this to the first quarter of 2026 based on advice. And that advice is very important. It came from Dr. Zach Adedeji, the Director General of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Namely, that they have had strategic consultations with people within the market space. And on the basis of this, the FIRS recommended that this should be postponed to ensure that we have the local refining capacity, that the necessary infrastructure is in place, that the framework for competition is in place, that the people of Nigeria will not suffer any hardship. Yeah. So we have to thank the FIRS and its chairman for doing this, even if after the fact. Yeah. This is what we say all the time, that look, this review could have been done ahead. And then Adedeji and his FIRS will have advised government. But then some other people will argue that, okay, government announced policy, people reacted, government now says, okay, we have listened. They've taken another look at it, and what we need to do is to do more with local refining capacity in this country, is to do more in terms of ensuring competition. If Dangote Refinery can do it, one individual, government itself can also do it. And I've said on this table before, they should study the models in other places where local refining works. Aramco in Saudi Arabia, Petrobras in Brazil, what is that one in Norway? It's not rocket science. We can strike a nice balance between domestic refining and importation, reducing importation and ensuring all of this for the benefit of the people. If we have the will, if we downplay politics.
Yes, I believe that the postponement of the 15% tax is a most welcome development. When this was announced in October, I had said firmly that it would put more burden on the consumers, especially because the local producers are not able to meet local demand. I also agree with the fact that it is important that consultations like this with critical stakeholders ought to be had before an announcement of a policy direction is made by the government. Yes, we can praise the president for being a listening president, but it's even more important for this government to show that they've done its due diligence before announcing a new policy direction and ensure that there's a justification, having analyzed and measured the impact on the people. Unfortunately, under this administration, we've had a number of policy flip-flops where back and forth, okay, we announce this, we don't announce this. And then at that point, stakeholders will come up and start saying, no, it's going to affect us. Again, I make reference to the share nut, the temporary ban on share nut importation and its effect on the industry. And so the big question is, who are the people advising the president? To what level or extent of consultation is had before a policy is announced, so that we don't have to keep going back on policies and so on? A final note on that point is that they're saying that they're postponing it to the first quarter of 2026. Will the concerns have been addressed by the first quarter of 2026? Would we have an increase in local production to meet local demand by the first quarter of 2026? What is happening with our refineries? What is going on with that to enable and encourage even the modular refineries to increase production? These are some of the questions, and I dare say that we are not going to be ready by the first quarter of 2026 for all these challenges that were identified by the FIRS executive chairman, and so the 15% might very well not see the light of day by then. It's a good policy, but ill-timed and ill-prepared. We do not have the infrastructure to support it yet, and when you think of and consider all the tax burdens that Nigerians face in addition to the current standard of living, then we cannot introduce another tax on petrol, especially when, as I mentioned earlier on, 60% of our fuel consumption is imported while 40% is sourced locally. Until we're able to meet at least maybe an 80%, 90% threshold, do not put more burden and more hardship on the Nigerian people. And again, just to mention that, to avoid an embarrassment to the government, let's try and engage widely with all critical stakeholders so that we hear all the voices and are able to make a decision when it comes to policies. Very quickly on the Wike matter, I'd said earlier, and I want to quote Minister of State for Defense, who said, anyone who disrespects a soldier indirectly disrespects the commander-in-chief. And this is why there is a call for an apology. This is not the time to show that, oh, I'm right and you're wrong. This is just the time to listen. From General Irabo to General Buratai, to Minister Matawale to Minister Badaru. All of them have spoken with one voice that what he did was out of order and a disrespect to a man in uniform. In fact, General Irabo said that he desecrated the oath, that the uniform has the authority of the state. And so he wasn't just speaking to an officer Yerima, he was speaking to an authority of the state. And so in addition, just because of that, he ought to show some respect and possibly issue a simple apology. Just because this also happened, interestingly, when we are launching the Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day. We are talking about how we want to elevate the uniform, elevate, how we see our military personnel, officers who sometimes pay the ultimate price. And so it doesn't all go well for that. I think in the spirit of humility and the respect of law, Mr. Wike ought to apologize to the military and apologize to the Nigerian people. And very finally on this note, I think it's also important that if we must speak for one, we must speak for the others. It was impunity versus impunity on show, because no one is above the rule of law. And therefore, we need to also investigate as well the former Chief of Naval Staff who had military officers to defend his land. Was it a matter of national security? Was it an abuse of the time of our military officers when their time is could be better utilized, defending the territories and the borders of Nigeria, fighting against terrorism? So we must also ensure that in trying to correct one wrong, we don't also apply a wrong to correct that. And I believe that represents the position of some lawyers, including Mr. Femi Falana, SAN, who weighed in on this matter. And that was the position I also took, that this show was a show of disgrace, impunity versus impunity. Investigation should be had, and where possible, let's ensure that nobody, not anyone, whether civilian or military, is above the law.